simple stuff. It's complicated. So don't get discouraged, okay? All right, so we're talking about the Adventist Church. We said William Miller, what is he famous for? Millerite movement. And Millerite movement was all about what? What did they believe? Jesus is coming in 1844. And we said, why did he believe that? And that's what the study is on, okay? So we went over 3 chapters, which was Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Daniel 8. And we said all of these, in the end, they're all related to each other. We know that it started with Babylon, but in Daniel 8, no Babylon. Next chapter, it was Middle Persia. Okay, all of these things right here. After that, what is it? Greece. Okay. So right here, right here. Okay, so far so good. And then what happened after? What's after? Roman Empire. Roman Empire. Okay. And then after that, what? Divided nations, but also who's like in power? Pope. Okay, the papacy. Okay, and that's the little horn, and the little horn over here as well. The long little horn. Okay. All right. So let's look at the timeline really quick of Daniel chapter 8, because we actually see that Daniel chapter 8 and Daniel chapter 9 are related. Okay? Even though they're in different times, we're going to see that there's going to be a relationship between the two. All right. So when we said Daniel had a vision, and then he sees a ram, and then he sees a goat, and then we see that the goat destroys the ram. Right? We talked about this. Okay? And afterwards, right, the horn, it grows, it attacks the earth, and then it attacks heaven. And then Holy One said he will trample the sanctuary for 2,300 evenings and mornings. We'll come back to this, okay? But what do we say about one day when it talks about prophecy? 1 day equals?
1 year.
1 year. So 2,300 evenings and mornings equals? 2,300 years. And so we call this 2,300 year prophecy. Okay, we're going to come back to this. Okay, Daniel asked for the interpretation of the dream. And then Gabriel tells him, oh, you see, the ram is who? Middle Persia. And then the goat is? Greece. So it makes it very, very clear. Okay?
So he actually said that before this happened.
Yes. Which is wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is really, really important.
Yes. And then we're gonna even come back to that later. Okay? Because some people could say, no, Daniel was just written, after everything had happened. But there's going to be another prophecy in here that it's like you can't mess around with it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll come to that. Okay, Daniel asked for interpretation because he sees the goat and the ram, and he's like, I have no idea what's going on. So Gabriel explains stuff. However, Gabriel, he explains some of the vision, but he doesn't explain everything. Okay, this is where we come to now. The vision of the evenings and mornings that has been given to you is true, but seal up the vision, for it concerns the distant future. So he says, I'm going to tell you some of it, but the other part of it, I'm going to seal it up. I'm not going to tell you the interpretation. Do you guys see what it's saying? Okay? Especially what? The vision of the evening and morning. So he's saying, I'm not going to tell you everything about it. Does that make sense so far? He says, seal some. I'm not going to tell you right now. Okay?
I, Daniel, was worn out. I lay exhausted for several days, and I got up and went about the king's business. I was appalled by the vision. It was beyond understanding.
So he's saying, I don't understand it. I don't understand what's going on. Okay, this is important, okay? Okay, now, we're going to go to Daniel chapter 9. Right? But I know for us, we just see it as chapters, so we think, oh, it happened like next, right? But it's a little confusing. Okay, so I made like a map for you guys, or a timeline for you guys, for you to better understand. Okay, this is the Babylonian kingdom, 605 BC. By the way, these are all like not exact dates. Some of it is exact dates, some of it is like approximate dates. All right, 605 BC, Daniel was taken captive by the Babylonians. Okay, so before that, the Jewish people, they had their own nation. But Babylon came in and destroyed them and exiled all the good-looking people. including Abel. Okay? So they took all the young and the smart people to serve them instead. Okay? Now, 603 BC, Daniel chapter 2 happens. Remember King Nebuchadnezzar? What kind of dream did he have? He had the dream about the statue. Okay? So about 2 years later, we think. Daniel chapter 7 happens about 50 years later. Okay? And then it's a different king now, right? It's King Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 2, but now it's a different king. It's King Belshazzar. Okay? And this dream, remember what this dream was about? It was the 4 beasts that came out of the sea. What was the 4 beasts? Lion, leopard, bear, monster. Okay? So I know, again, for us reading it, we don't know because it doesn't tell, 50 years later they had this dream. Okay? But I'm giving you this so that you could get a visual of, okay, this is what's going on. Okay? So by this time, he was probably let's say he was about 12, let's say. Then he's about 60-ish now in Daniel chapter 7. Okay? Okay, Daniel chapter 8. We just read Daniel chapter 8 together, right? What was it? What was the two? The ram and the goat. Okay, so again, who's the king still? King Belshazzar. But Babylonian kingdom is about to end. Now it's going to be what kingdom after? Middle Persian kingdom now. So by the time now we're on chapter 9, it's no longer Babylonian kingdom. It's going to be the Middle Persian kingdom, King Darius. So how many years have passed?
6 years.
About 6 years have passed. Okay, so do you guys understand? So from chapter 8, when he told them about the dream, but the angel said, I want you to wait a little bit. 6 years has passed now. Okay, and now we're going to chapter 9, okay? Abel?
In the first year of Darius, son of
Xerxes.
a maiden by descent who was made ruler over the Babylonian kingdom in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood from the scriptures according to the word of the Lord given to Jeremiah the prophet that the desolation of Jerusalem would last 70 years. So I turned to the Lord God and pleaded with him in a prayer of petition and fasting and sackcloth and ashes.
Okay. So this is very confusing, but basically, remember, let's go back to this. When Daniel was taken captive, there was a prophet named, we just read it. There was a prophet named Jeremiah, and he kept telling them, Babylonians are going to come, and you guys are all, it's going to be leveled. And people are like, no, God wouldn't do that to us. We're the chosen nation. But Jeremiah kept saying, no, they're coming, get ready. But they didn't. They fought and they got destroyed because of that, okay? But Jeremiah said, you guys are going to go to Babylon for 70 years. But after 70 years, God's going to bring you back. So, Daniel taken captive, and then King Darius, how many years has passed?
65, 66.
Okay, so Daniel's like, 70 years is almost up now. Okay, it's coming. So, Daniel is saying, again, right here, I understood the scripture, so he's reading the Bible for himself. Okay? And then he's reading Jeremiah, and he sees that desolation of Jerusalem would last 70 years. So he's saying, God, and I'm praying to you, it's coming. So please, let us go back. He's saying basically, God, keep your promise, basically. You understand what he's saying? Okay. So that's that. And then he prays for a long time. But we're not going to read the prayer. But okay, continuing on. Oh, that was the same slide. Okay. So there's a long prayer, but we're not going to read that. But he prays. And after this, let's see what happens. Daniel?
While I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and making my request to the Lord my God for his holy hill, while I was still in prayer, Gabriel, the man I had seen in the earlier vision, came to me in swift flight about the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me and said to me, Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding. As soon as you began to pray, a word went out, which I have come to tell you, for you are highly esteemed. Therefore, consider the word and understand the vision.
Okay. So he prayed. And then angel comes. Who's the angel? Gabriel. The same angel that appeared in where?
Mary?
Huh?
Was it Mary?
Oh, yes, Mary. That's very important, Mary. But earlier in Daniel. He also appeared in Daniel chapter 8 as well. Okay? And he says it. I had seen in a earlier vision. What vision is this? This is a vision. Right here, this one. Daniel chapter 8. Okay? Daniel chapter 9, he didn't have a vision, right? He who's just praying. Daniel chapter 8, he had a vision. I'm just trying to tell you that chapter 8 and chapter 9 are connected. Because it's very important. If you don't see that these are connected, then you're going to see that we're not going to get to the 1844 date. But if you see chapter 8 and chapter 9 connected, then we're going to see that we're going to get to the 1844 date. Does that make sense? Okay. And then he says, Daniel, I have come to give you insight, and then I'm going to tell you, understand the vision. But what vision? He didn't have a vision in Daniel chapter 9. So therefore, it must mean that he's talking about Daniel chapter 8. Because in Daniel chapter 8, he explained some of the vision, but at the end of it, what did he say? He said, the evening and morning one, I'm going to seal it up. Does that make sense? So 8 and 9 must be related. And then, now 6 years later, the angel comes and says, let me tell you more about the 2300 days. Okay. Okay. So let's keep going.
While I, Daniel, was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision, at first came to me in swift flight at the time of the evening sacrifice.
Okay, let's go next.
He made me understand, speaking with me and saying, O Daniel, I have now come out to give you insight and understanding. At the beginning of your pleas for mercy, a word went out, and I have come to tell it to you, for you are greatly loved. Therefore consider the word and understand the vision.
Okay, now, this word vision right here, and this word vision right here, it's different. Okay? Why? Why is it different? Because it's the same writer. Why is he using two different words? Okay, we think it's because he's talking about two different things here. Okay?
How about in like the Greek language?
It's not written in Greek. This is in Hebrew.
I mean Hebrew.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, is it like
Yeah, we're talking about in Hebrew. In English, they both say vision, but in Hebrew, it says, these are the Hebrew words.
That's it.
Yeah, hazon and then marak. And these are two different words for vision. So, I know this is complicated, but stay with me. Okay, in 8 verse 1, okay, going back to chapter 8 about the ram and the goat, when it says a vision, it uses the word hazon. So, hazon is used for the whole vision of Daniel chapter 8. Okay, so anytime when it says vision, 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 it says hazon, 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 hazon. Okay? However, when Daniel uses another one when describing the vision about 2300 days. For example, because he says hazon, 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 but when it comes to the 2300 days, he uses a different word. He uses this mare. Does that make sense? Okay? So he could have used the same word, but it seems like he's trying to distinguish. There's vision and there's another vision. So he's trying to distinguish by using hazon and then using mare.
So this is just a question I just thought about right now.
Okay.
Just because in Daniel chapter 1 verse 3
Uh-huh.
that we're just going over, it clearly indicates that it's 70 years.
Okay.
And we assume that 2300 days is why, but he's the same author. Why wouldn't he use years?
So good. Very good question. Because 70-year prophecy and 2300 prophecy, they're separate things. But they have the same timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there. I know this is complicated. There's a lot of different prophecies, okay? But right now what I'm trying to show you is there's two different things. There's a bigger thing. Okay, so we think hazon is used for the entire vision. But when he's talking about mare, he's referring to the 2300 year prophecy. So this one, he's talking about the whole vision that he received. about the goat and the ram, and then the horn coming out and all that stuff. But also the angel talks about 2,300 days as well. But the angel explains the horn and the goat and everything else, but he doesn't explain about the 2,300 days. He says, seal it up. Okay? So now when we come here, again, he says, I had seen this vision. So he's talking about the whole vision. And now consider and understand the vision, meaning 2,300 days. So again, chapter 8, once again, chapter 8 and chapter 9 we think are related. And now we think the angel is talking about the 2,300 days, year thingy. Does that make sense? Okay, if it doesn't make sense, don't worry, because I'm going to show you a chart that explains all of this, okay? So I know there's a lot of like different prophecies and years and stuff like that, but don't get lost. Or even, it's okay if you get lost. Okay, because you're going to get more lost here, okay? All right, Daniel 24. Okay. Yeah.
70 years are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
Okay, so 7's meaning what? 1 week. Okay, so 70 weeks. So just think of sevens as weeks. So it's 70 weeks. So 70 weeks are decreed for your people to finish. Okay, what does this sound like? Finish transgression. Sin. Okay, to put an end to sin. Very good. Okay, to atone for wickedness. What does this all sound like? Okay, so what does it all sound like?
Day of Atonement.
Day of Atonement. Okay, it could be Day of Atonement. Or in the New Testament, what do we call this? The ultimate Day of Atonement. Crucifixion of Jesus. Okay, so this is talking about Jesus here. Does that make sense? Everlasting righteousness. Seal up the vision and appoint the most holy place. Okay, so it seems like Daniel here is talking about Jesus. Okay, we're going to get there a little bit more. Okay. So again, 70 weeks plus 7 days, 490 days, which also equals 490 years. So we call this 40 weeks or 490 year prophecy. Okay, don't get confused. It's okay. Just another prophecy. By the way, we're going to get, right now, just put 2,300 days right here. Just put it on the side for now. We're going to do the 70 weeks first, and we're going to see how both of these are related together. Okay? All right, let's keep going. Hannah?
Know and understand this. From the time the world goes out to restore and rebuild, Jerusalem will be the appointed one. The ruler comes, there will be seven sevens, and 62 sevens will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in time of trouble.
Okay. So from the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild. So right now, there is no Jerusalem, right? Because the Babylonians came and destroyed Jerusalem. So a king's going to come and tell you, go back to Jerusalem. You guys can go back and start building Jerusalem. So from that time, how many weeks are going to pass by? From that time, there's going to be 7. So 7 weeks plus 62. So what's 7 plus 62? 69. Okay, so we talked about how many weeks? 70-week prophecy, right? 70 weeks. Out of the 70 weeks, how many weeks are going to be within here? 69. So we just have to account for 1 week now, right? But 69 of it, from that time until 69, okay, this Messiah is going to come basically. Okay, let's keep going. So as a starting point, Messiah coming, 69 weeks. Okay, 69 times 7, 483 days, which is 483 years. Stay with me. So the starting point, once again, it's when the king commands you to go and restore. Okay, in Ezra 7:7, Whose turn?
The king Artaxerxes had granted Ezra everything he asked. The hand of the Lord his God was on him in the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king.
Okay, so we look at history and we go, oh, what year was this? Because it says the 7th year of Artaxerxes. So we go, oh, it's 457 BC. This is when he said, go back. You guys can go back. This wasn't the first wave. It was second wave. Okay, there were already other waves going. Okay, but this he says, go and restore Jerusalem. Okay.
Wait, that Ezra is further along in the Bible?
Yes, it's further along. It's further along. Yeah, further along. So it's after here. I'll show you the. So first Jews returned to Jerusalem. Okay, remember when Daniel prayed and stuff like that? Okay. And then Daniel dies. And then, ta-da! A couple years later, go build Jerusalem. Okay. So, okay. This is exactly what we see. Okay. So 457 BC, go rebuild Jerusalem. 69 weeks happen. Okay. So this is when we think Jesus was baptized. Right? He was born somewhere here, but he was baptized. He started his public ministry. Okay, and it fits exactly. Okay, I'm going to tell you about the one last week. Okay, this is really cool. If you understand this, I think this is much cooler than all the other prophecies. This is really cool. Okay, let's keep going. Because there's one more week left, right? But the angel describes. Okay, Tracy.
And for half of the week he shall put an end to sacrifice and offering.
Okay, so the half left, no more sacrifice. That means, okay, because he's crucified, no more sacrifice. That's really cool. Is that really cool? So Daniel chapter 9 explained everything that was going to happen about Jesus, exactly when he was going to die. That's crazy. Okay? So again, half a year, 3.5 years. So we know that Jesus, he was in ministry for 3.5 years, and we know that he died.
Meaning no more Jewish law.
No more
Sacrifice.
No more sacrificing. No more sanctuary, tabernacle. Yeah,
Right.
the sanctuary,
Like bringing the
the
goats,
rituals,
yeah.
bring the goats,
The
and
lambs
yeah,
themselves.
no, none of that.
Yeah.
So no more of that. Okay. And in the other half year, we see that the other half, we think, okay, the Daniel doesn't really specify the other half, but we think that's when Stephen died. So that was like the final rejection for the Jewish people.
The first martyr.
Yeah, the first martyr of the Christian. Okay. So this is how we see this is what we call the 70-week prophecy. Okay. By the way, really, really cool. Okay. When was Daniel written? Okay. Most traditionalists, obviously, they just say, okay, Daniel says, I am Daniel, and I'm writing this at this time. So there must mean, he must be writing it in the 6th century. Does that make sense? But most people, most historians, when they look at the Bible, they go, there's no way Daniel could have known all of this. So therefore, right, they don't believe in prophets, they don't believe in God. So therefore, he must have written it in 2nd century. So it wasn't Daniel. It was just anonymous, some Jew who acted like he had prophecies and visions and he wrote it down. But he already knew about Babylon and Middle Persia and Greece. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? However, let's say this is true. Okay, let's just say this is true. It was written 2nd century. Okay, some 200 BC somewhere. Right? There's still no way to account for this though. Does that make sense? How can you account for this? So that's why this is, I think, 70-week prophecy is really, really powerful to actually say, Daniel, he's actually, he's getting these visions somehow. Because this happened what? Let's say, again, it was written 200 BC. It was written what? 250 years later, this happens 220 years later. Okay, obviously I don't believe that it was written in the 2nd century. I believe that Daniel actually wrote this. But even if it wasn't true, again, how is it possible that he was able to know exactly when Jesus was going to come. Okay, so that's a good argument. All right. Any questions so far?
And this all links back to, what was the one thing where it says 40 years and for 40 days and for each day of assigned a year? This is all predicated on something like
Yes, yeah, Ezekiel.
Ezekiel.
Yeah, Ezekiel, where one day equals 1 year in prophecy. Yeah. And so we see so far that everything, it works out if we actually read it like that. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
If they would have listened to Jeremiah at the very beginning, would that have changed?
I think so. Oh, by Jeremiah? I don't know if Jeremiah actually. I think the previous prophets.
Yeah.
I forgot. I have to get back to you on that, because I don't know if Jeremiah actually, if he came after, like it was already too late. Yeah. But I know prophets before continued to tell them, like, repent, 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 come back to God, come back to God, but they refused. And so finally Jeremiah was like, okay, like God already decreed this punishment. You guys are going to get exiled because you guys are not listening. But you guys have to understand, like, you guys are going to be exiled, but God's going to bring you back. And then we have that famous, I know these plans I have for you to prosper you and these things like that. Jeremiah actually wrote that while they were exiled. Or they're going to be exiled. Yeah. All right. So let's bring back. Now we know the 70-week prophecy, which is about Jesus. Okay. Now, how is this connected to the 2300 prophecy, year prophecy? Okay. If you look at Daniel chapter 9, 24, it says, 70 weeks are cut off from your people and your holy city. Okay? So therefore, when we see this word cut off, we go, oh, remember he's talking about the 2300 year prophecy? He's talking about that, but he's saying it's cut off from that. So therefore, we think 70 weeks are cut off from the 2300 year prophecy. Conclusion, then, 2300 prophecy has the same starting date. Basically, the 70-week prophecy and the 2300 year prophecy, it's the same thing. Okay? Just 70 weeks are a part of the 2300 year prophecy. Because it's cut off. This is just the cutoff of the big 2300. So it seems like, okay, what Angel's trying to say is, okay, remember we're talking about the 2300 days prophecy thing? This is just the front part of that. Okay, so therefore, Adventists, they start the 2300 days prophecy, the evening and the morning. Okay, they started from the same date as the 70-week prophecy, which is 457. Therefore, if you do that, then you're going to get, ta-da! We finally get to our date, 1844. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we got to 1844. That was very, very long, about-winded way to basically say 1844.
457 is solid, or was like that was an approximate date?
That we think is pretty solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because it was looking forward.
Because historically, Daniel
when he did
exactly
that
tells
message.
us,
Yeah, right,
in the
yeah.
7th year of Anexerxes. So that year is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Now in history, like when is that exactly? That's where there's going to be different things. Yeah. But this date itself, I think it's pretty spot on. But there's debate into whether 70 week and 2300, they're actually related or not. Yeah. There's some debate about that as well. But Adventists, we understand that they go hand in hand. Because we saw the connection between chapter 8 and chapter 9. And that's why I was trying so hard to help you guys see that there's a connection between 8 and 9. But if you don't see the connection, obviously then this should be separate as well. But if they are together, if Adventist interpretation is correct, then these should be together.
And if an anonymous Jew had written this in the 2nd century, it was
Right.
like somewhere halfway
Right,
between there.
exactly. If they wrote it here, even if they wrote it here and they knew all about this, fine. But how can you know about this? And that's the argument I was trying to make.
why the second century? Even if that argument was true,
Yeah.
why did they propose the second century?
Because we know that the Bible, the formation of the Bible, the book of Daniel was already written, like we see it around. So they're like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
it's around, so it has to be written like before these, like by the time Jesus is born and stuff like that, all of these people are already reading it.
Yeah.
Book of Daniel.
Yeah.
So they already know about it. Jesus already knows about Book of Daniel, right? He quotes from it. So we're like, oh, this book appeared somewhere. So it can't be from here. It has to be like somewhere here. But the Book of Daniel, he knows about Greece. So it can't be after, it can't be before Greece, it has to be after Greece. That's how they date it. So they already pre-assume that there cannot be miracles, there cannot be prophecies.
But they kind of just sweep the 70-year prophecy under the rug.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things that's, it's not really vague in my mind, obviously, because it says a lot of words like, again, you look at the wordings. I feel like this wording, it makes it very clear that this is Jesus. But again, it's ambiguous enough where the historians have no problem. They're like, oh, it's not talking about Jesus, they would say. Okay. Okay. Any other questions about this?
Does the Catholic Church follow the same?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
I
not.
know that.
Uh,
How do they view the Book of Daniel?
Okay, good. Very good. Very good. So, so I want you to understand that most Protestants, until like 18th century, so Millerites, they believed in all of these things. And then some of the other people, like they were sharing to, like the Sunday goers, they believed that everything up to this part is true. Like they believe this, like little horn, this is all Catholic Church and stuff like that. But they don't believe. So how they normally interpret Daniel and Revelation is, yes, this all happened during Daniel's time, or during the time Revelation was written. It's not now. It was just all in history. So they're all looking back. Whereas Adventist actually says, oh, we're in the midst of it. So that would be the difference. And the Catholic Church too, they would say, oh yeah, some of these things, maybe it's the Pope long time ago, they were corrupted, but or actually, I don't think they would actually say that, sorry. But they would say it's like some other nation and they interpret it differently. Yeah. There's other ways to interpret prophecy where they go, oh, all of these things, these are just symbolism that just happens over and over and over again. So rather than like specific history, it's slick, it's like cycle. What's the word? Cyclical. Yeah, cyclical.
Like
so
you
just
could overlay the story on
yeah,
anything.
anything, and it'll make
Yeah.
sense. It'll just,
Okay.
it's like a circle. Yeah. Yeah. So those are some of the major interpretations of Daniel and Revelation. Whereas we interpret it more as like, no, like we're still in the midst of this. And some people say, no, like this happened this happened with the Greeks. Like they say this is actually a Greek, one of the Greek generals. And then he goes to Jerusalem and he does like some stuff, and that's how they interpret it. Like this is just all history. Yeah, it happened all in the past. It's not about the future. Okay. Very good questions. Any other questions about this? Okay, so now we came to the 1844 date at least. Okay, and now we're going to start from here, and then we're going to go into, because people thought, most Millerite thought Jesus was coming back 1844, right? But we said, no, Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists, they realized, oh, Jesus didn't come back. They said something else happened. What happened?
Spiritual.
Jesus went into the, not spiritual, Jesus went into the
Heavenly.
most holy place. Okay, we're going to talk about what does that mean, and then we're going to go into Revelation, and we're going to finish off with Revelation. So now, what's going to happen, like, now if we are really in the end times, what's going to happen in the end times? So we're going to talk about that, okay? All right, so let's go back to our groups and review, and then let's finish up. Go for it.